All right, good evening. Tonight is Wednesday, no, it's not. Tonight is Wednesday, February 2nd, here in Brookline. I'd like to call the Brookline regular select board meeting to order. The time is 6:35. Okay. Present in the room for select board members, Bruce Bello, Stan Noga, Gwen Tanza, David Jones, myself, Dot Maggio. In the audience is our town clerk, Guy Tanza, doing the videography this evening, and Everett Mark-Hills, our road supervisor. Are there any members of the public in there?
No.
Oh, all right, there are no members of the public. No, I skipped the thing already. Review changes to the agenda, if any. Anybody have any changes?
I don't know if this is a change, but maybe a modification. You all can chip, let me know what your thoughts are. After having gotten the letter from the V-Trans person about the TA6 report, the financial and capital report, et cetera, I went in and looked at some of the reports that are in existence for our town. And there's stuff in those charts, I think I brought it with me if you want to look at it, where they claim they did not get certain information from us, which allows us to get an additional 10% off or credit for the town take responsibility for an additional 10% of cost of roads and structures.
All right, yeah, I'd like to.
So I didn't know if it's something that, since Mark has been involved perhaps in the past, and yourself as well, and David, if you had any input on that. Or just follow up and say, we did send this to you on such and such a date, so that we have the option, or I don't know if in your discussions
All right,
over
how
the
about
last year you run into that.
when we talk about the, under the summary updates, right after the building commissioner, any other reports, and this is for the V-Trans?
Yeah. For grants for roads and structures.
We just got
A couple of things
a
that
couple
we
of
need to
things
have on
today
file.
in the mail, and the email that I got today and yesterday,
Yeah, I sent you
Megan
also.
Drunk,
Right.
Megan Drunk from V-Trans.
maybe, I'm not sure.
I'm just reading, it's all the updated.
It's all updated stuff. All right, we'll talk about that, but we'll add it to that part of the meeting. Any other changes to the agenda? Additions? Okay, hearing none. Any members of the public join in? No, move on. Okay, we're gonna take a look at the regular meeting minutes from January 19th, 2021. We'll start on page 1. Anybody see anything on page 1 that needed to be updated?
All right, was that 21 or 22?
On Wednesday, January 19th, 2022, we had a
Got it.
meeting. And
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Anything on page 2? Yes.
Discussion signed contract. There's something on there. Ms. Maggio discussed addenda.
Under select board chair,
Under discussion signed contract on page 2.
discuss, sign, and
Yeah.
file contract for highway maintenance, Winter plowing.
It says Ms. Maggio discussed addenda.
Addenda,
Addenda.
okay.
What's the word?
The
I got it.
word
I
Addenda.
think it means agenda.
Agenda.
No, it was
Was there an addendum?
Is there such a
It's
thing?
more than one addendum,
That's right.
Oh, it's more than one agenda.
When we started reading
Is it
the
addenda?
contract,
right, Peter?
we noted that,
Addenda is the plural of addendum, isn't it?
that's my understanding.
You don't know either.
I think so.
I
think that's
feel
why
like
you- why you used it.
Can't you tell?
Okay,
We didn't have it in
so
prison.
we're good,
So we're good.
all right,
The second one
well, go ahead.
is F, building commissioners, unless Stan or Dot's signing on to being a building commissioner, but we don't have one.
Oh, yeah.
Singular, not plural. That's all I got.
Although it should be buildings commissioner
Yeah, what does it say?
You see
Building
that,
Commissioners, right,
under F.
under F.
Oh, here now.
I wonder if you can hear us.
It says building commissioners.
On page 2?
Page 2,
Yes.
letter F, the committee
Letter
had
F.
met at the previous night, and Ms. Maggio had circulated new language for the RFP. It was suggested that the matter should be tabled
Oh,
until
yeah.
the building commissioner the buildings commissioner. It's a possessive buildings
No,
commissioner.
no,
it's
it's not
plural
possessive,
buildings.
it's just plural.
Buildings.
It's plural.
Building is plural, commissioners is singular.
You mean the
Okay.
commissioner of buildings?
Yeah, exactly. There
All right,
Change it any way you want.
whatever.
you go. Even better.
Anything else on page 2?
Whatever.
Page 3 of 4, please. Anybody have anything on page 3? Page 4? None? All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, January 19th as amended. May I have a second?
Second?
Seconded by Stan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the January 19th minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Should I
Any
abstain?
opposed? Any abstain?
I should abstain because I wasn't there, right?
Right, Bruce wasn't here that day, so he abstains. You know you found all the corrections.
No, I'm just trying to do my job.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, next we have the, review the special meeting minutes from January 28th, 2022. There's one page of notes. Are there any corrections to be made on this draft?
The only thing I saw was down under number 7 with no further discussion,
Discussion.
Dorothy Maggio, when you added an N to your name.
Okay, thank you. I'll
It's up
fix
to
that.
you if you want to fix it.
No, that's
It's your
good.
name.
Make
So,
that like mellow.
right.
All right.
Totally cool.
That was the only thing I saw. Everything else I did.
All right. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for the special meeting on Friday, January 28th, as amended,
I'll second that.
seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none. All of those in favor of approving the minutes as amended from January 28th special meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, thank you. All right, new business. It also came in the mail today as well, and I sent a copy, the electronic copy, to everyone the other day. January 29th, we got a letter from the Putney Mountain Association. They're looking to acquire something called the Hilton Trail. It's part of a 26-mile ridgeline trail system that runs through the area. They're trying to acquire property, 142.5 acres of ridgeline property to add to the Windmill Ridge National Reserve and Trail, and 54.5 acres are in Brookline and 88 acres are in Putney. They sent some illustrations of the ridgeline and the properties that are owned and what they would like to acquire through purchase. They're going to be applying to VHCD for funding to support the project and would very much appreciate a letter of support from the select board. What is the pleasure of the select board? We do ask that if we are gonna send a letter, that they receive it before the 17th of February.
I mean, I'll say personally, I think we should be supportive of this. That trail is a really great trail. I don't know if anybody's ever hiked it. It's on the other side of the road from where the parking lot is, and the main trails that go up. It goes the other direction through a bunch of big pine areas and stuff, or evergreen areas. It's a beautiful trail.
Is that up by the Eagle Watch, up off of Putney Mountain Road?
No, because it's the other direction. So it's on there's a little parking
Right off
pull off.
Grandview
It's
Road,
by the pull into the main parking area. It's on the other side of the road, and the
Oh.
trail goes in the
South?
opposite direction, whatever.
Yeah, south.
The bridge is over on the Holland Hill.
Yep, it eventually meets up to home.
Comes out of Bennett Road.
It comes out on Bennett, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know where that is.
It really is a nice trail.
It's a very nice trail. So, and like their stuff seems to say, I mean, they already have this trail where they have been allowed to use the land, and they're now, I gather, just acquiring the land, and so
And it will be posted as an open trust system.
I personally think we should be supportive of that.
I would assume it's probably gonna tie in with the land that was purchased across from Maple Valley.
Probably.
The trail goes up.
Oh, through Dobson and that.
Yeah,
So, it's all-
Gwen? I agree, support, Stan?
I agree.
Bruce, okay. All right, I'd like to, I guess we don't have to make a motion, this is writing a letter. All right, I will follow up and send out a letter and to the Putney Mountain Association from the select board in support of their endeavors on this particular project. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The second one is a request from the West River Valley 100% Renewable Committee. The group would like to research the possibility of electric school buses for the school district. They're looking for a letter of support from the select board, similar to what the Wyndham Select Board report wrote. And I emailed that. Now, I did talk to, when some of this came out on our Front Porch Forum, I did respond to someone, his name was Mike McCasey, that it's a private company that owns the buses for the school and such, but I did get a phone call from Allison Trowbridge asking me as the select board chair to bring it to the select board's attention. They're looking for support because they would like to help in finding funding for the purchase and whether they can help the private industry or the school industry to look into this. They're not looking for any money, they're just looking for support in this process. And while I am a retired school bus driver, I don't know
Really?
too much about electric buses. I guess they're quiet, but I did read some information about them losing power and such when it's colder, but I guess doing the research, I'm all in favor of doing that. And this again, the letter suggested, it says, Brookline, Vermont Select Board supports the effort of the West River Valley 100% Renewable Group to explore the use of electric power school buses for the West River Modified Union District. Given that Vermont is part of the U.S. Climate Alliance, a coalition of 25 states who are committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050, the need to plan for a change is urgent. According to the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, the adverse impact of climate change is included but are not limited to an increase in the severity and frequency of extreme weather events, a rise vector-borne diseases, degradation of forests and agricultural soil, a shorter and irregular sugaring seasons, and a reduction in seasonal snow cover. The continued reliance on fossil fuel has health risks and an economic liability that may be mitigated with a transition to electric buses. We support the petition by the West River Valley 100% Renewable Group that was given to the West River Modified Union School District to develop a plan within 1 year for a transition to electric school buses within 5 years. This is what they'd like to type up and sign on stationery. Is that, David, how do you feel?
yeah, I mean, I'm totally supportive of it. The one thing that I guess I'm slightly confused by though is that, so are they asking for us to do something different than what the Wyndham Select Board did? Because if I'm reading the email correctly, the Wyndham Select Board merely said, the Wyndham Select Board supports the efforts of the West River Valley 100% Renewable Group to explore the use of electric powered school buses instead of diesel powered school buses in the West River Valley.
Have you had?
End of statement.
Okay.
That is correct, and I saw that, and from Marie Bell. I believe that they got their act a little bit tighter together when they sent me this email on February 1st, where they actually, because I asked questions when I had the phone call, like, I thought it was very vague what they were suggesting, so I said, I think I need a little bit more meat for that, my select board, so this has probably been lengthened, this.
Yeah.
I'm not able to hear.
That's okay,
Yeah.
this is just discussion. Oh, there's somebody who walked in the office. All right, so, yeah, I don't mind changing this, either copying what they said or what they suggested we write.
My only misgivings is, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't believe in this. But we have no input from the private companies that are involved, specifically Todd Lowry.
They wanna work with them. They
They
want
do.
to have supports that they can approach them, and they thought it was important for Brookline since this is the town resort.
Okay. Good.
I'm sorry,
Stan?
wanted dog license.
I'm in agreement with both these gentlemen. I feel the same way, we should support it.
You said yes, right? All right, so I will, retype this and, send this out as well. Okay,
No, I can't
new
do it.
business. Okay. Any other new business? No, we didn't have anything. All right, so old business, let's move right on then to, we can slow down, it's almost 10 hours.
No.
All right, town meeting ballot.
That's gonna riot.
It's not fun.
Town meeting ballot, David has sent out, and if you didn't bring yours with you, we have a couple extra copies of the official ballots for the annual meeting for February 28th.
Yes.
Oh.
You want a copy, Mark?
I love copies of. Oh,
You need any copies, Sam?
I've got them all.
Okay.
Here's the. You got mine? Yeah, sure.
All right, well done, nice and work, nice and neat, easy to read, you're gonna, these will be photocopied, single-sided, so that there's no back, front and back, right? Like we did last year, and,
This is great.
So that way I can just tell them the 3 pages,
Nice work.
not.
right, you don't have to worry about turning it
I don't
over.
fill this up in 2 minutes. This is great.
Thank you, David. This is
Oh,
good.
yeah, thank you.
Sure.
This is really
Okay.
great.
Do we need to, vote on this?
Why?
Oh, you could.
I mean, we could,
All right,
I mean, just to make sure we're clear on.
okay.
I mean, I guess the other thing I'll say is, you know, I had to manually create this, so I had to, you know, if one or more people have not already proofread it, it should be proofread.
I looked at it.
I mean, I've read it, but
I
I
looked
could have
at it
made
too.
mistakes, so.
Look good to me.
No, we're good.
No, I didn't see
find
anything.
anything that needed change.
So if it isn't, then all 6 of us are wrong, all 6 of us missed it.
Nice.
I think it was clever to use the word cross and then have an X, but so that hopefully they'll do it like they've done it.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
This is very clear.
No, they still check.
So, yeah, they did that last year too. and
They
it-
still
I
have
don't
it.
think it really made a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Depends on guys.
Well, I mean, I guess just so we're formalizing, then I guess I would make a motion that we approve the annual meeting ballot as presented.
I'll second that. Okay,
Discussion,
any discussion?
maybe.
Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the ballot for the February 28th,
As presented.
annual meeting ballot, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. What did you say?
Approving it as presented.
As presented, yes.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you. All right, warning for the informational hearing. I was so happy to see this come across my email, like, oh, something else that David did it now.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
So a couple things to note, it's, again, this is something that multiple people should proofread probably. Although it's not, this is just the warning for the meeting, it's not whatever. If there's mistakes in it, it's not that big of a deal.
Alright,
But the meeting, so I set up, if you look in Zoom, I've set up a meeting under our Zoom account for
I was
this.
gonna ask you, because it's already numbered, okay?
Yeah, so I set up a meeting already for
In the town
February
center?
23rd, in the town.
Okay.
house. Yeah. And as an aside, we should definitely change the password on the town Zoom account sooner rather than later. Because I found some indication that Zoom had a data leak, and that account, among many, many others, was one of the ones that the password was exposed. So we should change the password.
Okay, Gwen, could you just write that down, change password in Zoom, and then I'll pass it on to the powers that be, so that you can do it for them.
But anyway, I basically did, this is exactly the same format and information as last year's informational hearing, just with updated, the articles have been updated to reflect the new ones. You know what I mean? But everything else about it is basically the same that we did last year, which seemed to be fine, I guess.
Right, I think last year the meeting ended a little sooner than we
Yeah,
thought it
really.
would.
Well, yeah, it moved much
Well,
faster
sure.
last year than we expected because there were almost no questions.
Now,
on
who's
anything.
gonna host the meeting?
So it's really about
You'll
how
be here?
fast we read it.
No?
This meeting is only by Zoom from your homes.
Who's gonna host it?
Well, I will sign in,
Okay,
and well, what do you mean, who's gonna host it?
well, someone's gotta host it, someone's gotta have the computer and say, start the meeting and recognize whoever wants to talk and so forth.
Moderators.
I mean, I can come here myself and do it from here.
Well, you
That's
can do
easier.
it
I
from
can
home,
do
it doesn't matter, as long as there's someone has to host it.
Right, David, yeah, we don't. we can-
David was here last year, but you don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
be.
last year I did it from here, but the only real reason that I did that, as I recall, was because nobody else was here other than me.
Right.
There had been, David Parker and I last year had contemplated whether it would have made sense for both of us to be in the same room in case we needed to sort of have conversations at points about things, but it didn't matter that we weren't because there was so little that came up. I will say this year could be a very different
Sort
story.
of be.
So,
As far as.
sorry, the reason I came here last year was because
User.
I wanted to have the folder for all of the appropriations requests in case people had questions about the appropriations requests. So that I had access to the letters that the organizations had actually sent with the requests to be able to give
Answer any
a
questions.
little bit of whatever information I can find about it.
Okay,
That makes sense.
But, you know, I mean, that's something that could be taken, you could take that home with you.
okay.
I mean, I don't know that there's much more that's necessary about it than that.
When we do the ground rules, housekeeping rules for joining the hearing that you sent me, pretty much explains how people are to ask questions, and they can, of course, email questions ahead of time if they want things to be addressed, and then they can watch the video at their own leisure to see what the answers were on that.
Right, and I mean, the way it works, it should work, well, and the way the agenda is set up, and I think the talking points that I sent you from last year say this, is basically we go article by article.
Right.
And if people have a comment or a question,
There's a
they
mix.
sit and wait until we get to that article, and every article has an opportunity for public comment or questions. And I think I mentioned to you before that if a bunch of people were to attend, managing all of that in the online meeting is going to be a task, is going to be a significant task. So it's not going to be feasible for the same person who is reading and moderating the discussion to also be administrating the Zoom portion of keeping track of people, I don't think, or it might not be.
If you need another body to
So two people should
assist, I
come in
wanna
here.
do so, whatever, it may be, just
Is
to
that
be
two
trained.
people that-
I mean, I think the way we worked it last year, and I guess and we could, you know, we don't have to completely nail this down now, we could also discuss this at our next meeting, I guess, how we handle things, but I think the way we did it last year was whoever was acting as the moderator, last year it was David Parker.
And he's resigning, we won't elect a new one until after this meeting.
Right. So he's not at this, is he?
Right, but remember, this is a select board meeting, this is not a town meeting.
That's true.
Right.
So we were under no obligation to have David Parker moderate it, but we thought it would be a good
Sure.
thing to do, so we asked him and he was willing to do it.
Right.
I'll say again, I don't know if anyone has asked him if
I
he's
saw
willing
it.
to moderate
I did,
this informational meeting only.
I did, I might see him again tomorrow, but he was not inclined to.
Wants to get
I mean,
that.
that's, I don't blame him for not wanting to do it, but I just wanna make sure that we at least ask him.
Yeah. That's all.
But so the way we did last year, and I think probably would make sense to do this year, is that any clarification on things that happened on any of the articles, because there were things that we proactively clarified, the money for the budget, like what that represented, or I don't really remember if we said a whole lot about it, but the chair who is running the meeting should be the person who handles all that. The rest of the select board members should be muted and silent unless the chair requests that one of them unmute and speak about something.
Okay,
Because everybody needs, not only all of us, but anybody who's attending, everybody needs to be muted all the time. Because it'll get really noisy and out of hand very quickly if people are not muted. So everybody needs to be
And then
muted.
it starts.
Unless the chair says to the person, you can now unmute yourself.
I'm trying to remember how you.
and no raising of hands in the chat.
Well, how you
do
again, last year we didn't have very many people and it didn't really come up, but the idea would be, if we have a number of people, the only practical way to manage that is for people to use the raise hand functionality in Zoom. And when you raise your hand in Zoom, it flags you in the participant menu and it shows the order in which people's hands were raised. And so then if people want to speak to a certain article, when it gets to that point, the chair could, with someone's help, recognize, okay, the first person to speak on that is so-and-so, please unmute yourself and make your comment or ask a question.
I'm trying to remember.
And then that person finishes, mutes themselves, we go to the next person, and so on and so on.
Dave, I remember how you do
And that's the
that.
idea.
How you unmute yourself at *6, but how do you ask to be recognized? I forgot.
Raise your hand.
If you're on the phone.
That's, I don't know, I told everybody, you can do it, there's a key, it's in there.
Yeah,
It's on the talking.
We'll get a copy
Okay,
of
never mind.
this.
I explained it all at the beginning of the meeting last year, people. I
Okay,
can't, it's
I'll-
like star
I'll read it
9
later.
or something, maybe,
Okay.
I can't remember.
There's a way that they can get your attention,
Yeah.
but just,
Okay,
And you'll get this morning, we'll give all that information.
Yeah,
for the
okay.
meeting.
answer.
All right,
And like I said, those are all things, right, the warning contains some information, but there's a lot of very important things in that talking points document that I shared with you, that I think
right,
are important to say at the very beginning to make sure no one is confused about how
right,
the process
Procedure,
will work,
yeah.
what the procedures will be.
right,
And it is worth mentioning that because it is a select board meeting, we are bound to follow our select board rules and procedures, which we adopted back in March, which acknowledge that people have a right to be recognized and that we give people 2 minutes. And I think one of the talking points I made last year, which you can choose whether or not, was that, hopefully we don't necessarily have to enforce that, but we do have that if it becomes a problem.
okay. All right, so as far as helping with the hosting, Stan, you offered to,
Whatever way you need help.
you work with the Zoom and know what he's talking about with the raised hands and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay,
I just don't know how to control it. Well, I sort of do, I run a couple meetings, but I haven't.
well,
gotten that
actually, that's a
sophisticated.
problem, let me think. You and David were not in the same room
Uh-huh.
last year, correct?
No, we weren't. We weren't. So,
Yeah, we have to be in different, we can't like be here and work together, we have to be.
well, you can. There's no reason that people can't be in the same room. We weren't last year because there didn't really seem to be a need to do it. And the COVID situation was different then than it is now. I think there could be a lot of good reasons for some people to be in the same room and just have then the ability to at least speak to each other directly, because remember, if everybody's in their own homes doing this, you know, you have no easy way to communicate with Stan.
Right,
Whereas
So if you had a regular,
if people who are organizing it are in the same, the one thing that you don't probably want to do is
two computers.
have a bunch of people online in this office
But that's what
on
I'm
the Zoom
thinking of.
meeting at the same time, because the service here is not probably robust
so
enough
would
to
it
handle
work
that
if-
very well.
so if you had a regular select
Wait,
board
wait,
meeting.
all right, Glenn.
Would it
first.
work if, like, say, Stan, me and Guy are in this room? We don't have a computer, but we're here so she could ask questions if,
Right, exactly. I mean, in a way, there's not really any reason why the hosting of it couldn't be the same as the hosting of this meeting.
Right.
And there's no reason not to do that.
Okay,
And, you know, and it's just a question of who's going to be
when the computer.
paying attention to the participants in Zoom and helping manage that. But, you know, if that's up on the screen, it will probably be easy enough for people collectively to sort that out.
all right,
And the muting and unmuting really just becomes whoever's got the computer, guys doing it, just muting us when people go to speak to ask their questions and bouncing back and forth.
okay.
So basically have the same format as we have here right now tonight. Doing, you know, all select board members here, and then having the people join at Zoom, on Zoom from their homes.
Yeah.
Is that what you, because this way
That's what we're
everybody can
discussing, but we
communicate.
haven't agreed upon that, that's what we're discussing
Oh,
about
okay.
doing. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking that,
I mean, we're not obligated, if we do that, we're not obligated to have any people
in the
be
room.
able to show up
Right, exactly.
as members of the public.
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
questioning,
and that's what this warning, I mean,
explain.
well, I mean, I don't know how much it explains it. It says that it's an informational hearing by electronic means. It doesn't give a physical location. I mean, I guess if somebody shows up,
The
you
door will be
can't
locked.
control that somebody shows up, but we're not obligated to, like we are in normal meetings, we're not obligated to have to give people a physical location they can come to.
Right, they could use
For
the
this
hotspot in the parking lot, you know. All right, let me think about and bring this up at the next meeting, but I think that might be a consideration that I hadn't had, which would be to have us in the room at the same time. I find that would be very supportive and make me feel a little calmer, I think.
Well, and I think it would just be easier now that people are in I mean, the other thing I'll say, and this is no offense again, but I have noticed that I don't think your internet service is great at your house.
I have
Because
Xfinity, but yeah.
when we have
I-
meetings, when you have been at your house, your video and audio breaks up
Breaks up.
pretty quickly, so.
He thinks that's.
I
her
think that's
tablet,
a device.
That's her tablet, not the, he thinks it's her computer,
Chromebook, that might be
Yeah.
her book, rather than the internet itself.
that could be-
right, and I could use the.
Do right here, just like
I
we do
wouldn't have
here?
to, just like,
You do up.
I think that would be
It'd be
very
just like the normal meeting, in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah.
There's, why not do it that way?
And we're here to support Dot.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I love running meetings. All right, that's very, okay, I like that, that possibility of.
How many people were at the last information, do you remember, Dave?
There was two.
Other than us, two people, Dot and Dan Tower.
Okay.
I feel like it's possible there was a third person who briefly logged in but then left.
Yeah,
But I think it was basically the people who actually asked questions or recognized themselves was literally just two people.
okay.
Yeah, okay, that's
And
like,
that
it
was
wasn't,
new to the, we're all new at that point.
But obviously you need to be prepared for the possibility
Of having
that 100 people show up.
yes. All right,
Whoa.
Okay, all right, well, I think,
Well, the nice thing is you can
we'll
only
confirm
have
this
100.
next week, but I think I'm pretty convinced that that's probably would be an ideal way to go.
So the one thing that I would say is that this, so this warning, you do need to warn this meeting by the normal means that we would
Posting.
warn.
48 hours before.
I am,
So the informational
So-
meeting will be in February 23rd?
Yeah,
okay. All right, well, I will ask Mr. Tanza to post the warning for the February 23rd remote informational hearing
All right, is this, and I'll use this for the,
warning.
yeah, I mean, I don't think we found anything that we
okay,
felt needed
that's
to be
fine, I'll
changed.
do that.
Did you need this posted at the Triangle again?
We'll have to post it, yes, before the meeting.
Okay.
Like 5 days.
I think it's 48 hours before the. But there should probably be some sort of a press release and a thing with Julie going out, just so as many people know about it as possible. We can put it on front porch
Yeah.
and the Julie, and that should cover pretty much everything that we have to do.
We should.
It sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
Should put it in the comments. No? Done.
I hear you.
Okay.
Okay, front porch forum, Julie would work on listserv, and the commons would be 3 places to have the informational hearing warning and warned agenda to be posted there, okay.
And the ballot has to be posted by the 8th, I believe, of February. 20 days prior to the election.
All right, well, I will get that done then. All right, anything else on the morning? Town report. So, who's woodpile?
It is about to be, it started being printed today,
Right, whose woodpile is a picture of?
mine.
Very nice.
I couldn't find any photos that I hadn't used before. And I thought about calling Gwen and Guy, but it was like
Maybe
7:30 on Sunday night, so
That takes me forever.
I found that I had a wide shot of my wood stack at one point, so I just.
Pretty
dropped it.
appropriate.
I thought it was all right.
And then it's back.
All right,
So yeah, so I approved the proofs this morning and they're printing it.
Really? Again?
In theory, they're gonna mail it.
Really?
Sorry?
No, never.
Oh.
Never mind.
Yeah, so it's supposed to go in the mail
You're happy, aren't you?
by the 15th or so
okay, 15th of February.
of February.
So we will
And
get
it's
it
gonna be
on.
mailed first class, so people should start, it should get to people the 17th or 18th, which would
10
make
days
it
before,
legal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah,
All right,
it's supposed to be distributed by the 18th. What distributed means is very vague though, so I think.
Yeah.
And I'll get you the PDF to post on the
All right,
website
thanks.
tomorrow, and I'll send it to the archive people also.
all right, excellent. All right, anything else on the town report or town meeting questions? Move on. Yes, sir.
I was looking through some others further back and noted there was a page that dealt with estimated tax.
Right.
So I did this on the fly in the last hour before coming down here, in terms of trying to calculate it. And I looked at a prior one to see where the numbers came from and just simply duplicated it, so,
Right, and I guess I wanna make it very clear that I asked numerous times, and everybody in this room was on the email, and the auditors were on the email. I pointed out that we normally have an estimated tax rates report in the town report, but that has been, since I've been around, it's always been supplied by the treasurer. And I was told by Doc that
I checked
there
it
wasn't gonna
tomorrow.
be one.
Right,
It's not required to
Right.
put it in the town report.
right.
in the,
One of the reasons,
I'm aware
It isn't
of
gonna
all
be
of
in
that, and it's not, I wasn't intending to put anyone down in a negative light.
No.
This is purely an event that at this meeting, we get asked. And so you might want to check it. You've got something
Okay.
that's available for reference.
Okay.
That's my only purpose.
Well, there's a lot of variables there, Stan, because what we're asking for and what we get voted are two different numbers.
I realize that.
So
That's why it says
that,
estimated.
and that was the confusing fact, because people say, oh, no, you said at the meeting it was gonna be this and that. It just created some sort of,
Oh, I see.
problems,
It's-
saying
it's-
that you at the meeting said, well, we were gonna have 0.44% for taxes. And then when we factor in the different appropriations, the budget stabilization, the fund for the recycling, it changed that considerably. We also have veterans,
Right, that's the only thing I didn't include in this.
But I will put
Everything
this-
else that you mentioned is
Yeah.
accounted for.
I will put this with that paperwork that will be for this meeting, but I'm not sure how to even review this, to tell you the truth, Stan. We had a list that's billed, office operations, I'll have to. Oh, highway.
Oh,
did you use
yeah,
the
I'm not-
2021
yeah.
grand list?
that's probably, well, I knew it was after the fact, I knew it wasn't at the end, so. Given an hour before this meeting, I got the spelling of highway bill.
I love,
And the
if I
other,
have any questions, I'll ask you to explain, because I'm not too, I don't know where to begin to analyze this.
the other thing is that the tax rate usually isn't set until the list is lodged, the grand list with the town clerk. Because April 1st is the stop date. And from that point on, we will have a fairly good idea of what the town's valuation is. So that's another issue with the setting the tax rate. You have to wait for the listers, you have to wait for all the appropriations and so forth, and that's just for the municipal side. And then the school district, when they vote on March 23rd, so let's just say they approve it, they have a 30-day appeal period. So that factors into the tax rate too. So there's a couple of different scenarios that go into that. And I guess
That's
rather,
to set the final rate, correct?
right,
Just so anyone who looked at that might feel comfortable, that grand list amount came from the state of Vermont. In their annual summary report that was published
right, that's the
early
CLA.
January.
Yeah, that was.
No, not the CLA, this is the education grant list upon which the calculations typically
Okay.
made. So it's not a number that I got from somewhere.
Oh, no.
It's an accurate source, should be anyway, they produced an annual one. If it's wrong, we gotta tell them.
Yeah. All right, so I'll have to look at it for that, yeah. All right. Thank you. All right, then we move on to item D under old business, table from 11922 highway maintenance, winter plowing and materials with AF Clark and Sons 2-year contract that was won in September of 2020 and expires in September of 2022. One of the reasons why I brought this up was when working with FEMA asked if we had contracts on file, and what I was able to pull out was this contract, and so it's not. It does say in the contract that it can be extended for another 2 years upon written agreement between the parties. And I'm assuming that was due to the accepted 2-year contract that was voted on September, or that was submitted September 14th, 2020. But I thought we needed to have something in the records, which was the actual contract. Now, at the last meeting, we saw a reference from one contract to another article, and the second contract for the services is the basic vendor contract that we put out to all vendors for services provided. And then, of course, this one that was. So, I don't know where it is. Anybody need a copy of it? Yeah, you don't need a copy of it. Okay, so, now Gwen, you spent some time and typed over the first page, which had some dates in it, and we questioned, I'm looking here, the contract is entered into on the 6th day of September, but we really can't have the 6th day of September because they didn't submit the contract until the 14th of September. So I have to go back, and I did go back and look at the actual date of that select board meeting in which it was approved at. Okay, does anybody have anything they would like to contribute to this? If not, I'm going to, maybe point out the first sentence, we just need to change the date to the date that the contract was signed. The date that the contract was won back in,
I don't know.
all right. I can just go to the minutes at some point. I was planning on doing that, but I didn't do it today.
There was discussion about the contract date, and I think David observed a contradiction in something and
Right, that's what I'm
recommended that we
referring
do the 14th.
This was for the,
salt set, this is for the plowing.
It's in the clock.
Right, that was, run back. This was in 2020.
It
Yes,
says, yeah.
Well, I think it's likely that it was September 16th.
makes sense because it was submitted on the 14th and the next meeting was the 16th.
Yep, and Wynn Clark was here, so. Accepted the proposal for a 2-year contract on September 16th, 2020.
Okay, we got the date going. Thank you for looking. All right, September 16th would be the date that would be changed on the front page. And we were looking on Article 6 subcontracting. One of the things that Stan pointed out, which made us realize that there's two contracts in one here. The town certificate of assurance showing all of the coverages as required in Article 13 of the contract. We have to add the word as, but. Oh, no, we don't have to add the word as. Showing all the coverages required in Article 13 of this contract. We don't need to change that. That's all. And then there's areas to sign it, so.
I had written down as, let's see, required in Article 13 of the vendor contract.
Oh, okay, you want to put the
Vendor
word
contract.
vendor, because the vendor contract was the second
Right.
one.
Right, I don't know if that, how
That makes it
others
easier.
feel, just
Vendor.
because it says vendor contract on the top of that second one that has the Article 13.
Okay. So with those two changes, if I get those two changes out to us, is it all right then if we look to sign it at the next meeting?
Okay with me.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
just leave a copy of that,
Yeah,
while the changes are.
I'll take my time, make sure I give it to you. Do that. All right, so we will add that to the agenda for the next meeting, is the finalize for the select board to sign that contract. Yeah. Okay. All right, we also tabled on the 19th, the request for proposals, the RFPs for the Brookline Meeting House, fat removal, carpentry repairs, and painting of the steeple. So those were also given out to you, through email. I do have some extra copies if anybody needs any.
I mean, I have to admit, I'm not sure I really am clear on what we're looking at this point, because there were a bunch of different versions that were sent around. So I don't know which one we should be.
All right, I think then I will provide that for you.
Okay.
Okay, on the 19th.
You know, maybe just because
I think it was the very last one we even sent out.
Yes, of course, but I wanna make sure that I
Forget the
have.
date.
Right, this was the top copy. This is the revised one.
And can I ask before you make copies of it, this has been formed into a normal RFP structure?
RFP structure and that it has,
All of the standard stuff that we normally put in RFPs. that we talked about?
reserving the right to reject any and
that stuff,
all,
yeah. Mhm.
and the time, yes. So I'm going to start with the first one, the repair to steeple, and I'm gonna
How many, okay, how many?
five,
I've got one.
four.
You take one.
she's okay, she's coming out, the list black and blue around the eyes. To play full.
I don't.
I hung up and went down and told my wife that.
You have a copy yourself?
Two of her friends have recently called and both of them are like,
Yeah,
one of them's out there early.
I believe it. I felt 3 times in 1 year. I got sick of that.
More, I don't know.
Oh, all right. All right, so I'm gonna read this bid. This is what they would like us to consider to put in the newspaper for bidding. I will probably, it will definitely be on the website. And the bid for the newspaper will, introduce the bid and refer people to the website in order to be economically feasible, because otherwise a bid like this, each time we put a bid, it's close to $500 and we put all the words in. So bids are being solicited for flashing replacement and siding repair of historic Brookline Church. A current certificate of work insurance is required at the time the bid is submitted to the select board. Work must be completed by August 15, 2022 and inspected to the satisfaction of the select board. Methods and materials for flashing replacement and siding repair are as follows. Provide a suitable man lift to access the side and head walls of the steeple. Itemize this expense, please. Remove trim boards and clapboards in an area around the base of the clapboard steeple. Any compromised wood needs to be replaced with light wood. Clapboards at corner boards need to be trimmed at roofline, making a 2-inch reveal from the wood to slate. Remove slate at the sidewalls. Any bare wood exposed during repairs needs to be spot painted. Furnish and install 20-ounce copper head and sidewall step flashing. Reinstall previously removed trim and clapboards. Reinstall previously removed slates. The town reserves the right to reject any and all bids and to accept the bid deemed most favorable for the town. Send bids to Town of Brookline, PO 403 Brookline, or hand deliver. Attention Brookline Meeting House. Sealed bids will be opened at 6:35 on Wednesday, February 16th at a regular select board meeting. For further information, call town hall or visit the, and I put the website address. So these are the suggested repairs for the steeple at the Brookline Meeting House. At this time. Now, there was a discussion, and Stan came to the meeting, about the, using a secondary bid for a man lift. And if you notice in this bid, we discussed it at the Brookline Meeting House meeting, that Bruce, you had mentioned that you are aware of a rental that might be economically favorable to the town for a man lift. There is a question about the ability to coordinate the lift availability to the repairs. So in order to accommodate that possibility, I suggested that we have a secondary bid that you see in front of you. Do you have the secondary bid for the lift?
No.
I just have one.
Okay,
I think I saw that.
I'm gonna ask you guys to do that for everybody.
I got that as well.
Yeah, I think I got that one. You sent it in email.
Good. At that meeting, there was discussion about whether it was a 64-foot, 65-foot, 63-foot, we didn't know, so they used the word suitable. And this,
Yeah, we were.
Suitable 65 foot.
Yeah, I think that's what we said, that's the minimum size.
It can't be a 45. That's too small. That's too short.
Does the contractor's insurance plan, cover these actual machines that take place for the how would that work?
They're working. I'm not sure.
Just, if the town rents it and the contractor runs it, it's insured.
That's a good question.
All
I
right,
would
so,
imagine that we're on the hook for the insurance. That'd be my guess.
all right, so let's make
That's
sure we're all
fine.
talking about the same thing and the conversation is
Okay.
public. So, this man lift, I'm gonna review this at the same time because it goes with the first one. It says bids are being solicited for a rental of a suitable man lift to be used at the historic Brookline Church for up to 3 different projects during the summer of 2022. The lift must be available for use during the bat exclusion project at the steeple, the carpentry repairs to the steeple, and the painting of the steeple. Please submit a sample rental agreement and cost estimates for the use of a suitable man lift and any limitations for the times the lift will be available for delivery to Brookline for up to 3 different projects on the church on Grassy Brook Road. And then it goes on to the town reserves the right, so on, and that we open it again on February 16th. So my concern is being able to
You've got 3 different coordinators.
coordinate all of this, and I'm concerned that, okay, we have the repairs to the steeple, there was a discussion about doing the bat exclusion, which the committee would like to hold off on, and then there was a discussion about doing the painting bid. And I'm just concerned that there's a lot going on right now. We have window project that has not been completed at the Brookline Meeting House. They ordered it. It was supposed to come in December, January. It's not in yet. Then we wanna do the steeple, then the bats, and then the foundation work. I think it's more than we can bite off in 1 year as a select board. I'm not talking about a committee person right now. I'm talking about as a select board because it's up to us to manage all of this.
I'll let Bruce go, then I wanna ask a few questions.
Sure.
Why don't you go to the questions first?
Well, so why, I wasn't at the meeting when you guys discussed all this, but I don't understand why, if the one thing that is very clearly defined and seemingly the first priority is the repairs to the steeple, I know it would be great under an ideal circumstance if we could get a lift and we could coordinate all the 3 things, but I agree with Dot, it doesn't even sound like the committee can necessarily wrap their heads around all of that, let alone people who are outside of the committee and don't even know as much about the building as
If I can interject.
So I don't understand, I think we should limit ourselves to this RFP, and in that case, it should be a suitable, they should be supplying the lift. And they should be, I mean, that's their business to do it, and they don't build that into the cost, obviously, but that's.
Well, that's where we came up with the idea of making the costs separate so that we could see the cost. This came up with Old Mominy when we were considering doing the painting. And we had.
As a school?
Mhm. And we discussed the idea of also, hey, what happens if you got the steeple too, to paint at the same time? We got off on a convoluted discussion. But what it ended up to be was he didn't need the lift. And he rents his lifts like by the month because he uses them all the time. Now, I think it's beneficial in every instance, especially when you deal with the back situation, that it's itemized. The work's gonna cost for the steeple $16,000, whatever it is, plus this much for the rent, for the lift.
Right,
And what David is saying is very true in one sense. You can't, it's too convoluted, you cannot manage 3 different projects with 3 different entities in one given year, if it was gonna be one given year, with trying to time it all so that you have a lift at all at one time. It can't happen, it's gonna have to be separate, and that's just the nature of the beast. So it's a good idea that in every instance that they give, if they're gonna give a quote, they give a quote on the project and they give a quote on the lift if they choose to. If they don't, I have 3 alternatives as far as because I've already done it. I just have to update the numbers, but I've already.
What do you mean by alternatives? Explain what you mean by alternatives to the lift. You
No,
mean different companies?
yeah, I have 3 people that I had contacted when this all started with the painting back a year and a half ago. I just need to update the costs, but I talked to 3 different entities. And so it's just
about renting lifts.
about renting lifts and the details, and it's really quite simple. You either have it dropped off or you go get it. It's not rocket science, they do it all the time. And there's cost factors and by the day and so on. So it's not as complicated as we're making it out to be, other than like what David said, is if you try to combine all 3, you can't do it. It's just not feasible.
So can I just ask the question then, are we really talking about the second RFP at all, or can we just focus in on honing or making any changes we think we need to make on this one repair the steeple RFP?
Okay, well, answer to that is, we should consider about everything that they asked for, I would think. And when initially, they had everything in one RFP, correct?
This is what I gave you.
Right, I'm talking about initially, that's the very beginning. Now, I'm not talking about the steeple, I'm talking about the very first time, they had all 3 projects in one bid when we first started this, and then we separated it out.
That's the way it looked,
Pardon me?
that's the way it looked.
Right, and what I'm pointing to is that this is good. And each project should be handled independently. And in my opinion, each project should be done in an appropriate order. And to do the steeple work first in my estimation, is a proper way to do it. You seal the building, get the work done, get it done, get that all done. Fix what you gotta fix. Then you have the back line removed, get that done. And then you have the painting done and everything else is done. And to mix match or try to get them all done in one, like I said before, in one given span, it's just not a good idea. It won't work. It just won't work. And you're asking for a small miracle to get everything all done at all at once.
Alright, so
So to answer your question, this isn't a bad idea, and the separate for having a bid for the lift. So if somebody's gonna bid on this work, they can choose either to bid on the lift or not bid on the lift, as they're choosing. I think what we need to avoid is a markup on the lift combined in with the steeple work. In my opinion, we need to differentiate what the steeple work is costing. Is it costing $8,000, whatever, and what's it costing for the lift? It's a separate entity.
Right, well, I did hear, please itemize the expense for the
There you
suitable
go.
man lift.
Right.
Okay, but what David is asking is, I have 2 proposals, 2 RFPs. The steeple, including the lift, and just lift.
Okay, oh, okay, well,
So David's saying we don't need to cover this because they're gonna be coming up with,
he's got a point. He's got a point, because the lift doesn't need to be put out to bid.
No,
Not at
why
all.
would we do that?
We shouldn't have to, exactly. If the person person owns a lift and says, we're gonna give you a good deal, we'll do the whole work for $8,000, it's usually $8,500, we'll include the lift. Okay, have at it, you're taking responsibility, great, do it, but I doubt if it's gonna work out that way.
so not,
Except in the case of maybe the painting, but the other situations, the other 2, the back one on the steeple, no.
So wait, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So you're saying you don't think that the people who are going to put in a bid for repairing the steeple will want to have to provide their own lift?
I don't know.
Okay, because I just want to point out, we're not we're not structuring this so that people can give us a bid on the lift and give us a bid on the steeple. We're saying one of the requirements of this bid, as I read it, is to provide a suitable man lift. So they're gonna have to, if they're not going to be providing a lift, they're not gonna bid on this.
Right.
Is that what we
They're not
want to
providing
be the
a lift.
case?
They're not gonna provide a lift. They're not gonna bid on it.
Well, I mean, I don't think, I wouldn't, because the first thing it says is provide a
I don't
suitable
have a
man
lift, I
lift.
can't, I
So
can't
access,
bid on it.
and if I can't do that, then I'm not gonna bid on the job.
Yeah, I can't, right, because they don't know if they can't bid on the job.
Should be something.
Yeah, they may be renting
It's
it
the
on
first
their
thing
own.
under methods.
Correct. I don't understand why we're even considering.
All right, well, this was something, Bruce, that you said that you wanted to have a separate. This was
Okay,
something
wait,
you
wait,
recommended.
okay.
And then I was saying, recommended to the meeting house that then we break it apart.
I don't understand. I'm losing you. All I'm saying is, we have prices to do the lift. I don't know.
I don't have any prices to do the lift.
Whatever, I would have tomorrow morning, that quickly. It's not that hard.
But you can't do it without a bid.
You don't have to bid the lift, that's what we just talked about. Why are we bidding the lift at all?
We're
You
not,
split
it's
the work.
supposed to be provided, whoever bids on doing the project is
And
gonna
that's the
provide
problem,
the.
because the person that we might have as a competent person to do the work might not have a lift and won't bid on it.
Understand?
My thought is if they're even gonna consider doing this type of work, they've done this before, they probably have a means of using the lift. And if they don't, we shouldn't be hiring them,
It's a good point.
you know, if they don't.
There's no other way to do it without a lift.
That's right,
If they're not-
so if they've never done this before, why
I mean,
would
they're gonna have,
Okay.
before they do it, they usually inspect the project to get so they're gonna come and see the steeple, how high it is, they're gonna
Oh,
know they
you know
need
what?
something to get up there.
That's right, that's right, and it only
Okay.
makes simplification for us and
Okay.
them. If
Yeah.
they do it all in one whack, they get the lift, et cetera.
Okay.
Now, regarding how to separate it,
Makes sense.
what you had offered to get us a lift at a real good price from someone that you knew.
Mhm.
And the object there, I think that you were stressing, which was a really good one, I think which has always felt similar to this, it could save cost.
Sure.
In the long run for the town and the citizens.
Sure.
So that's kind of think how we got off on that branch.
Yes, we did.
So, but for
But your
bidding
point
now,
is, your point is strong
which is what,
about what you just said about
Oh,
if a
yeah.
person knows what doesn't work, they're probably gonna have the available lift, we hope.
exactly.
Right, and I think this was brought up a little bit, and I think it's a legitimate thing, that I don't think it's a great idea for us to be renting a lift that some other contractor is then obligated to use at our insurance risk. I mean,
May increase.
if they provide the lift, it's
They provide
their,
their
they
insurance.
understand it, they're the ones who have the liability for it. We don't, unless we're saving an enormous amount of
Sure,
money
that's not.
by doing it, it's not worth us
But that,
injecting ourselves in the middle of that anyway.
And for us
So
to be
you're-
scheduling the arrival of lift, but
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
else's
right.
work, I mean, they do it themselves.
So like you said, if we were in a situation where we could get 3 of these things done in a certain period of time, and then maybe that, but for this one-off project,
for this year.
I don't think we should get in the middle of the lift thing.
Okay,
They
so
should
then-
provide it, and if they can't, they won't do the job.
So then submit the bid the way it is and don't do the separate bid for them. And then we can move on forward to the other 2 projects as we go along. I know the middle guy,
Makes sense.
the guy that I was consulting with you from New Hampshire about
Yeah.
background, I believe, well, he's not local, so we'd have to work out something there because he's not local, he's from Canaan, New Hampshire.
Whenever we have bids, you're free to print off the bid and mail them, hand them out, we've done that before to anybody.
If I'm talking about the event, him needing a lift, which he would need, it would have to be supplied, and he's an hour from us, an hour and 15 minutes from us, so it's a little bit more difficult.
The steeple?
No, I'm talking about.
And that's a bridge we can cross
Down the road.
Yeah.
when we get to
Yeah, I'm
it.
not gonna worry
Let's
about
just-
that.
But this
Let's
is
just
okay.
try to,
So we're just looking at this bid for repairs to the steeple, provide a suitable man lift to access the site.
can I ask a question about that?
Itemize the expense, please, and cross that
Is,
out.
do we really, does the world really still refer to these as man lifts? Because that bothers me.
Good
Yeah.
point.
It's,
Just lift, right? Just lift.
Person lift?
Jen,
Could we just say, I mean, if we say suitable person lift, will that make sense
That
to
sounds
people?
better.
That's fine, I could do
I
that,
don't really
yeah.
wanna call this a
Thank
manual
you.
lift.
They also call them a high lift.
A high lift?
High lift.
Yeah, I mean, whatever would make sense.
well, that has implications too.
Isn't
Yeah.
offensive to,
All right, person lift, I like that, high person lift. All right,
Okay.
changing this to drop the itemization of the expense, please. And change the word man lift to person lift. And the date of getting it done by August 15th allows for that's for the repairs, yeah, okay, so August 15, 2022, that's okay, opening it up on the 16th, I can get this in the newspaper tomorrow. If I do it tomorrow, it will appear in Saturday's paper.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'll do it tonight.
So they're okay with this approach? I'm talking about the committee.
Yeah, we went through, we talked about what were the original ones and we updated it together
Okay.
and it came out to this. And from this meeting, we came up with the secondary man lift, person lift, but we're not gonna.
Well, this is, to me, this is the most important
Yeah.
thing, because because it's.
Well, I think Kerry Bourne didn't wanna have to lift,
Yeah,
Pull
that's right. Okay, just, let's see the numbers, see the dollars and cents.
At no point in the meeting did they put limitations on the select board's ability to modify this.
Okay.
The issue of the lift was discussed at length, kind of like we've done it now,
Right,
and I think they're flexible. And
Are
my
they-
impression was-
Were they saying what, kind of what you were saying, that a person that's gonna do this work would have the availability of it?
yeah, that they didn't wanna pull it out and try to coordinate they didn't wanna pull the lift out of the bid and make a separate one, so we left it in the bid
They
and
did,
made a separate.
they didn't want it.
They didn't wanna pull, they didn't wanna have to juggle the whole bids.
right,
Okay, they just wanted to bid it, they bid it.
The vendor
right.
provides everything,
right.
right? Okay, so that one's okay. The second one was, okay, we also talked about the removal of the bats in the belfry. And it was suggested by the committee that we hold off on doing that bid until after the steeple is repaired, because the need to get someone in there before the repairs to do the bat remediation would be useless, because the
Yeah.
repairs may remediate some of the problems we have. So we'll hold off on this. In fact, the fall is a good time to do the removal of the bats, because then they can put in the one-way exclusion doors, and they would breeding season, they would get out, and they wouldn't be able to come back in. So right now, we're just looking at the invitation to bid for the repair of the steeple.
Right now.
The next bid is for the exterior painting of the steeple. Do you all have a copy of that?
No,
I mean,
I just have the repairs of the.
I've got one, go ahead.
This is the one we corrected and then. I must have typed it several times, I just never. Great, yeah.
I think the English language is one of the hardest words.
Well, just put suitable lift,
There you go.
gotta lift something.
Human being lift.
All right.
eliminates trouble.
All right, Brookline, town of Brookline invitation to bid for exterior painting and steeple. Bids are being solicited for painting the exterior of the historic Brookline church steeple. A current certificate of insurance is required at the time of the bid is submitted to the select board. Work must be completed by October 30th, 2022, and inspected to the satisfaction of the select board. Methods and materials. Provide a suitable lift to the access, the sides and head walls of the steeple. scratch itemized, scraping all loose and falling paint, sealing nail heads and knots, oil primer to be used on any new or exposed wood, repair and re-nail any loose clapboards, caulking, 2 coats of acrylic finish paint. Shutters will be scraped, primed and painted with 2 coats of finish paint. The town reserves the right, so on and so forth, as the other ones for February 16th opening. I have a concern that, as I was saying before, I'm thinking because the painters' schedules get very booked up and we're looking at someone to come in between August 15th and October 30th to get the work done and the costs that are involved, I'm wondering if this is something, and I'm on the committee and we haven't talked about it, but maybe this is something that we're not ready to do all this year, because we still, there's the window project isn't completed, and then we have to do the repairs. And then we have to do the bats, and then we do the painting. I would like to maybe think that this might be something for, we can put the bid out or postpone it and put it out later on for the following summer.
So there's really no need to put a bid out now.
Right,
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
I go to the select board, and this is something I was just looking at, it's like, this is a lot of supervision, and I know I'm overwhelmed with some of the stuff I'm doing, and I'm like, how's the select board gonna do the window repair review, the steeple repair, the bat repair, then the painting? Yes, sir.
I'm kind of wondering, and I'm questioning Bruce's role in that he's the commissioner of buildings. If he is going to be the person for the board that's going to be
We don't know.
monitoring this and orchestrating it, or is it the whole board's gonna take on the responsibility?
Well, it's a board's responsibility to come up with a plan, and yeah, I mean,
And then the board can appoint
well,
1 or 2 people to review and process the, inspections or whatever.
right, we have to make a time for someone to come and see the building, so somebody from either
This is
the
easy
committee
stuff.
or the
Yeah.
board can be present, and
Yeah.
I'm
This is
on
easy
both.
this has been done, this is easy stuff.
Yeah.
The 3,
Next
Go ahead.
question is,
Go ahead.
what are you comfortable handling in a 12-month period? Or
Okay.
or an annual range of dates?
realistically, I see several things happening. If I can just get into some detail for a second. First of all.
Quickly. No, you got 5 minutes.
We're spending far too
Too
much
much
time
time on
talking
this.
about this, I gotta say.
What's that?
Like, I don't really even know why we're talking about this, honestly.
Well,
We just spent 10 minutes,
One
we
reason.
spent 10 or 15 minutes talking about how it doesn't make sense to do any of the other stuff before we repair the steeple. And that we should do the bat remediation before we do the painting. But we
Correct.
haven't even thought to start
Correct.
considering an RFP for the bat remediation. So why would we put out an RFP
I'm not
for the
saying we
painting
should.
that's due in 2
Dave,
weeks?
let me make a point. What I'm having a problem with this bid is stuff that we're asking to do a painter that shouldn't be done by a painter, it should be done in that way.
We addressed that, and
What do you say?
we're not sure what these are, the painter jobs, these are typical things that painters normally would do.
Sealing nail heads and knots?
Yes, this
And
is,
renail the loose clapper?
yes, we're told that that's something that the painters are fine, normally done.
But I-
Same thing as the carpenter will spot paint any
Okay.
raw wood that he exposes
Okay.
or she exposes.
2 more quick points, so not to get crazy. First of all, we don't know what the budget is of this church committee yet, we don't money expenditures. What was my second point? And secondly, that isn't the only painting we need to have done in that building. So, per what David is saying, this is premature. This should be done next year, in your opinion, my opinion. At the first part of the year, have this all laid out and organized, and
Okay,
shortly, we will know what's in the budget, what we're spending on the other 2 projects, and what's left. Because that isn't the only thing that needs to be painted, and it would be probably better, right, needs to be determined whether the whole building can be done at once, the steeple and the inside. But we'll see. Now you're shaking your head, that isn't what Mohammed
Let's
said.
not go there.
okay, so, do I have a consensus that we will table any additional RFPs?
I just would like to point out one thing. And that was that I had clear feelings of, I'm gonna interpret what I sensed everyone at that table was thinking from the committee. They wanted to look at RFPs or RPS, whatever it is, now, because it's early in the year. And we're hoping to accomplish all of these things by the end of the year. And after October 30th, I guess, it's not good to do any painting. So, you know, that having been said, if people don't care if those two projects are done this year, then, you know, it's easy to delay it. If on the other hand, a majority should feel that we should do the painting in the same year that the repairs are done, then maybe there's a need for spending just another 5 minutes on it and deciding whether we should do that this year or not. The other question is, and that you brought up, is I don't think we've been presented with what their budget, we know it's in the account, but what do they want to spend this year? How much is outstanding for the windows and what does that leave remaining? And that's a little bit of assistance we should not be talking about, but getting from them upfront as a part of this whole package of discussion.
Okay, well, there is a meeting tomorrow night.
Can I just say, yeah, I'm gonna sort of echo, I mean, it maybe gets to the, after all of this, I'm not sure I understand what the committee wants to do. And no offense to anyone else, but the reason we formed this committee and that the committee exists is to advise what should be done on that building. And I am going to defer to what the committee wants to do 99% of the time. But now I don't honestly know what the committee wants to do because it seems like it's
They're
been
going back and forth.
well, and we're now in this discussion, things are being changed about it. My only point, my saying that I didn't think we should do the second RFP was based on what you guys are saying. But if the committee wants this to be put out now, then maybe we should put it out now.
We certainly can put it out. I'm concerned that there is an awful lot of projects going on and I'm not sure if there'll be any grant money. I'm not.
And I mean, although at the same time, I guess I'll somewhat echo, I think a little bit of what Bruce was saying. Until the RFP comes in for the steeple work, I don't know how anybody has any idea whether all of these projects can be afforded anyway. Although they also, we wouldn't know how much the painting would be until we put an RFP out, so.
But if we have an RFP,
It's a catch-22, I mean, you do have to get bids in order to know what the scope of things are, so.
and if we know in 2 weeks what the bids are, if we open the painting bid, the repair bid on the 16th, we can put a bid out the following week for the painting, then if it's within a financial realm, and that's what I would recommend, yeah.
The other comment that I caught Leanne mentioning is the fact that the commitment on the part of Mr. Culver expires at the end of 2022.
Correct.
So the advantage of having $10,000 available, I get the sense, I didn't exactly say it this way, but she did say, and we've got the expectation of $10,000 from that wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was that she was thinking of the accomplishment of the two projects with what we have plus the additional 10. Of course, was gonna make this happen this year. And that's why I said what I said. To be more explicit on why I said what I said.
But we're still.
Whether you wanna put it off a week or two to the next meeting, I don't think that it's gonna get all the difference.
No.
Yeah, good to scheduling.
I wanna see some numbers, I don't know how everybody else is. I
All
wanna
right,
see
I'm
some in the account, you know?
All right, in order to get us moving on, I'm
Let's get the bid
table
going on, the first one's fine.
correct, I'm gonna table the exterior painting bid at this time. I'll bring it up to the committee tomorrow night when we meet. I will post we'll drop the person's lift and I will post the repairs to steeple bid, so that will appear on Saturday. Okay, thank you. All right, finishing up here, anything else? All right, town clerk, Guy Tanza.
Just a quick reminder that dog lights has started and we have until April 1st and this year we'll be doing the things that we normally would do. Last year because of the COVID, we waived a couple of penalties and everything else. That won't be the case this year. It'll be dog licensing as usual. And I'm not so sure about the rabies clinic this year. again, COVID related, so we're doing things as we see them, and hopefully we can do it. But there are some other clinics where people can get reduced rates for rabies, they just have to do a little searching for it. Other than that, the conveyances have slowed down to some degree, but refis are still moving right along. That's hasn't changed at all. I was surprised at that. And I've actually seen houses now in Brookline that have sold twice in the same year. So yeah, it's a wild market, and the real estate brokers are going crazy because you think they're making good.
Yeah.
But when one house goes for sale, it's like a frenzy. They're all going there racing each other, so it's not as lucrative as you might think. No. But anyway, so that's where we are, and we will be doing absentee ballots for the town meeting. And as soon as we get the ballot ready and everything else, I will send a letter out. We will send a letter out from the town clerk's office, the procedures and what we expect for the vote, which will be February 28th. And the polls will be open at 9 AM and close at 7 PM as usual. But just stay tuned, and we will send an email blast with Julie, and hopefully we'll also be in the front porch forum. So everything's
We have
going
to,
well.
so that we have to do, people request, we have to send them out if they request them, right?
Yes, right, we're not doing a blanket, absentee ballot. If people wanna have a ballot, there's the My Voter page, which is very easy, that's the best way to do it. And that will come to our dashboard here in the office, and we'll mail them right out, and everything will be fine. It's the same experience that we had last year, it was pretty good, and hopefully we'll do the same thing this year. That's all from town clerk land.
Okay, I'm sure report two, select board, the question about the surplus, if the appropriations to the capital improvement fund is not passed, then yes, it can be put into the general tax liability, reducing the tax liability, so that's fine. Okay. Two of the things that I worked on, I sent a letter to the Newburgh Fire Department after the suggestion of Alyssa Sabato regarding them representing us at the regional emergency management committees or the REMAX, which has been established by state law recently back in and I went to the first meeting back in November when I attended the Zoom meeting, but it was really beyond what I needed to do. So when I talked to Alyssa, she said, since we do pay dues to the fire department, they should be providing the representation for Brookline and Newburgh was not present at the meeting. So I wrote to Todd and asked him to do that. The other thing is that I'm working on, I'm still dealing with the unanswered complaint for pesticide abuse in Brookline. So today, working up my ladder today, I was dealing with the Secretary of Agriculture. So he's reviewing the work and so the complaint, and so yeah, nothing, I got no response from anybody else, so we weren't sure if the proper channels were met by the field representative to put the original complaint. So, which is what I was told was gonna happen, and I didn't believe it, but that's what happened. All right, building commissioner?
I've been waiting for this. Okay, I got two things I really wanna talk about. First is my relationship with Olivia at Susie's. We've had some issues in the past, and it's gotten came to kind of a crest last week. And I specifically asked her, not in an email, not in a phone call, not in a letter, person to person, not to call me at home under any circumstance. She understood it, I told her why, and I sent her an email on Monday, January 24th, after they had complained about an issue. And I responded back to her, and she immediately called me up, and we got into it real good. So I have the whole email that she sent afterwards to me complaining about the incident with her right here. It was mailed to David, it looks like, Guy and Doc, but not you, Stan, unfortunately, but I have it here if you wanted to look at it.
Who emailed it?
Olivia. So to fast forward a little bit, so I don't get too long-winded, and there's some things she said in it that basically were accusing me and the town of not being careful with the safety and endangering the kids in the building. That's it. Dot and I talked about it, and I concluded that the best way going forward, and I don't have any problems dealing with Stephanie, who basically runs that room. So Olivia runs, I believe, all over it. So anyway, so Dot and I talked about it, and Dot is on the email list if there's an emergency issue, but like I said initially, she has no right to call my house at all. And every email that has ever been sent to me, and there have been dozens over the last year, they have been responded to and responded to quickly. And like I said, God, maybe I said this here. The first thing that goes on, I'm usually up by 5:30 at the latest. Benny gets me up. I'm up all the time. And the first thing that goes on is my computer on Gmail. So if there's an issue, I know about it all the time, first thing. React, and in every single incident, every single instance, I responded to every one of their emails, going way back, way back. And to add to it, Coda and Coda, I'm not saying they're perfect, and I don't know how this is all gonna end up with the heating system, and I'll explain that in a minute, has responded every single time on the same day. So her implications that I was having zero communication and was putting the kids in an unsafe situation due to improper heating and some other comments, that was enough. I decided at that point in time, my issues are to fix the building, not to deal with her little rants and raves. And Dot agreed to communicate with me as was needed if she felt that, I'm putting words in your mouth, so excuse me if I am. If she felt that I needed to know something. But in the meantime, it doesn't change. If Olivia still sends an email out, I know what's going on. If Stephanie sends an email out, I know what's going on, or Aaron, or any of those people. So anyway, that all being said, that's been, seems to be taken care of. Dot was kind enough to call Susie and took it up with her.
I called for
And
two
you can-
reasons.
you go-
One was the lease, which had an error, and I said that you should be getting it in the mail and to resign because there was mentions of Sunday late daycare somewhere in there. And I also talked about the fact that she was calling us unprofessional, and I said that was, and Susie was talked to Olivia, and I talked to Olivia today, and Olivia,
She's like sweet
was,
now.
yeah, she was very nice.
This is what she does. She goes to sweet. and-
So, all right, okay.
Okay, now I'm gonna,
Now do the building report.
because I could cite examples on them. Anyway, on to the building report, which is, unless anybody else has a question. No. Okay, let's move on to the important things. For lack of a better word, the heating system's a freaking mess. And I'm trying to come to a conclusion of understanding every, I think I said this before, of every part of the building. Hiram's coming in again Friday, I think with Sean too, to continue on fixing and replacing things that I had discussed prior. So I really don't have any more update other than they are in the process of going forward, and they had to wait for some parts, but they're coming Friday to continue on. He promised me, and he's been great. Communication's been great with Hiram. I called right now, probably pick it up. He's really been good. And he promised me a report of everything that was gonna be done, because I needed personally to know what was broken in that building and why. Was it because of old age, because of wear factor, or because somebody did something wrong? Because in my mind's eye, Bruce needs to know if it was something I missed that somebody else did. And it's a little hard to tell if somebody put a zone valve in and Bruce missed it. But that's okay. I just want to know who did what, when, where. And then it occurred to me, since 2014, that there have been, I think, 4 plumbers in that building. So that's part of it. But I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody. And all I'm trying to do is fix the system and understand the system. And I'll have a plan going forward for the heating in that building, which is to be discussed down the road a little bit. I'm hoping to have some kind of a presentation after the new board takes place around March 16th. Of other things I'm working on. But the end of the story is when it's all said and done, I go back and inspect, make sure I'm happy with the way everything is working. I'm starting to understand it way more than I did before. We basically have two heating systems in that building. We have the air-to-air heat exchangers, which has air that blows in and turns on the heater, and warms the air coming in.
That's up on the ceiling, in the attic.
Yep, and the one down below, in the basement where we took the chairs out. There's one there too.
Oh,
There's one for the roll building.
okay.
And we have hot water baseboard too.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand all of it. And so that I can report to you all when it's done, that this is what I see, it's working this way. And then hopefully I can make a proposal of what I think we should do forward with the system, because this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, and this has been ridiculous for a long time. So I'm trying to put a stop to it.
Well, thank you very much, sorry that you go through the briefs and stuff, but
Yeah.
Well, I put an
move
end to it.
onward.
Sorry, you gotta, it seems like there's an unfairness being demonstrated, and I hope you don't hold yourself responsible, since you're not trained, licensed, anything with regard to these things. So I wouldn't know how in your situation whether someone put in the right part or not.
Yeah,
You know, so don't feel,
Well-
don't feel bad about it.
well, there's one point there, and we won't get too off on this, is that there were still things concurring, still happening in the building. I won't say that I ignored, but I just thought it was a part of the system, like the banging. And Olivia, to her benefit, and to her, she was still doing it. And that's led into before last fall. And that's a part of the problem, that you guys really some serious loud banging, and it turns out some zone valves were turned the wrong way. And that's part of it. So there's some transformer wiring that was wrong. And who knows what else, but Hiram's gonna let me know.
That's great.
We had some mice, you're gonna love this, Glenn, ate some wires downstairs. Glenn was there getting ready to steal mice on me.
The one that was in here that almost started a fire.
Oh, maybe he moved. But anyway, so there's a lot of different things going on, and he will give me a report, and in that report, I'm sure I'll be able to explain it all to you really quickly. This is the way it is, it's working, and this is what caused it.
Thank you.
All right, Stan, just, you had mentioned earlier to add to the agenda, the V-Trans materials. Like I said, we just got some things in the mail today, from them. But
Yeah,
if you could, I name something, I can possibly go back and look in my records, but if I missed something.
well, in conjunction with the email that came through, and I don't know if I got it today or it's short in the recent past, but I did get it at some point. And I read the whole letter. You know, it's set in a couple places, percentages, and it referenced the municipal road and bridge standard reports. And one is a sum report, and one is an itemized report. So I went in and I clicked on what seemed to be the easiest, and just to double check to see if we had on file with the state that they have acknowledged the two documents they said they required in order to give us an additional 10% in funding. So that instead of being an 80-20, it would be a 90-10. And I guess for the roads, it's 70-80, and we get 80. 80 instead of 70 if these two documents are on file with them. And according to them, I can make copies of it, the certificate of compliance and date is blank. And the town highway network inventory date, the date that we submitted to them, is blank. And I said, well, let's go and check the more detailed report. And I highlighted in blue, so when I copy as a copy in color.
All right,
The same two dates are blank. And there's a local hazard mitigation plan called an MHMP for a brief reference.
we do have that too.
And they claim they don't have it, but we didn't send them. They got no. We're on other things like local emergency management plan.
Oh, look one.
Call it LEMP, they say on this, yes.
We do have it, LEMP, but I don't know what the other one is, I thought that was the same, so if you make a copy of that, I can follow up on.
I think it's possible that the local hazard mitigation plan is something that we have not ever done.
Oh, the
As a town.
mitigation plan, wait a minute, what is in the town plan?
There's one that Wyndham Regional,
which is what we've worked
if
with.
there was a grant that we actually applied for last year at some point to get us potentially some funding to do that, if we were going to do it, but I don't, as far as I'm aware, we've never been
And that's not
informed
critical.
whether we even had a grant, whether we even, I mean, I may be wrong, but I think the thing you're referring to is in fact something that we have never done as a town.
That may be, but the fact that the documentation required to get that additional 10% from the state doesn't include that particular report. It only includes the certificate and the other thing.
I feel like we did sign up for it. Send out the paperwork so that we could be able to apply for these grants and save money. And I don't know where it went.
But the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm feeling that probably we have. But if they don't have it in their records that they're showing,
Right.
would there be the possibility down the road that we don't get
Right,
funding and
but
they
we
say,
don't
well,
get
no, this is this thing, and we haven't gotten
But
it.
it should be.
So it's just trying to cover ourselves, CYA, in terms of doing the best for the town of Boston.
This, I don't know if it's the same email that you're talking of, but from Megan. Megan is, works beside of, Mark Pickering and Demetrius, and she's, each year she meets up with us. A date set, I think date set with her, one point. A year ago. If not, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but
Thank you.
but I know she'll come to each now,
Right.
and if she can't get here, she'll do the phone meeting.
Okay.
And, but she's supposed to be letting us know, what grants that we can apply for, what grants we are eligible for, and any other questions that arise.
Okay, all right, I think we can find it, I can call that, with the certificate of compliance with road and bridge standards and dates. Because our highway network inventory, we just signed, that was the road line.
Yeah, that's the one
I-
that's due the 20, that was sent and emailed, and they'll sign it and send it back to us.
Yeah, I thought each of these were things that we do every
Yeah.
year,
Yeah, we are, we're gonna have to do it again
and we
soon.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do them every year,
So I don't know who it goes
And
to.
there's one of these that they went to, I can't remember which of the two, that they shifted last year to only doing them electronically. And because I remember we had a whole discussion about it, about going online and completing the one that was now no longer going to be a physical document. I think it was one.
Well, I
of
got
those
in the mail
two.
today. Some online documentation,
is that the one that I sent to you,
well, you know what, I'm getting it mixed up with the article stuff, so I'm not even gonna, I'm not gonna go look.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Steve, do you recall
thank
the
you.
Better Back
Yeah.
Road grant, there was like A, B, C, D? One of those,
Oh, I remember the certificate.
we signed up for,
Yeah, we paid $500.
Wyndham Regional was going around to inventory our roads.
Right.
To do the Clean Water Act 60 thing. And because we did that, we were eligible for funding that way because we applied for this particular grant.
Right, well, and that was right, and I don't know if that's.
Is that different?
If
than
that's
what Bailey
the
talked
network
about?
inventory, although this looks like something different, but.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, right, we did get a grant a few years ago, someone regional for Jeff Nugent and those guys to do a complete
Thank you.
Alright,
inventory of everything, and they did that inventory, and I remember that they said I don't think that's necessarily what this is, though.
okay.
I think this is something different than that,
Well, I know
I
in
think.
the past, we're doing two different grants.
Okay.
We do one Better Back Road grant, the other is the mitigation or
Right.
Yeah,
Act 60 changing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what Stan's brought up, you know, where we can get more funding funding or pay back less.
Right, that's what he's saying. All right, well, I'll see what I can find out about this, but thank you. I'll bring it back to other boards.
And one other quick thing, it mentions that when we sign one of these documents, that we're gonna have to sign them in 60 days or so. We've read the compliance that the town has, we either meet or exceed the requirements. And is that something that's in the Orange Book, or is it, it is, so
I
I don't need.
standards are
Okay.
in that one, and
All right.
yeah, that we comply by.
All right, thank you.
I have an old orange book, it's got, when I first came on board, I assume that they've changed it and updated this one.
I think 2019 was the last time.
Yeah, 2019 is the newest one, and there's a digital copy, that Stan sent out.
Yeah.
I didn't send it to you, I would send it to you,
Yes,
if you want it, I'll send it.
I think you
Anybody else
should,
want it?
I saw
I didn't.
something related to the orange
I
book
don't want
in an email.
Oh,
Yeah, you
maybe someone
referred
else
to it.
forwarded it, or wherever.
You
I'll send
referred to it, but I
Okay,
didn't
thanks.
see an attached.
You can delete it.
Because mine's gotta be before 2019.
Yeah.
That's only 2 years.
Yeah, I think there was a long span from like 12 to 19
Uh-huh.
before.
Well, this one says Orange Book
Okay.
2014 to 2016
Right.
Okay.
on this
Yeah.
form.
How many pages is it? Probably 100.
83 or something.
I'll bring it here and let Guy print it.
All right, road supervisor, Mark?
Hey,
You dreaming, Mr. Noel?
That-
You dreaming?
I dream a lot.
so,
It's, anyway,
I've been
yeah.
in contact with RT about roads and, we're still good with sand. He figures after this, incoming storm tomorrow and Friday that we may have to replenish the salt and then salt shed for future storms. Today, we had a warm day. I wasn't sure how much salt we would get, but the roads that I did check on appeared to be still slightly snow covered and
That helped.
no muddy or rutting yet. And now the temperature is dropping back down for the next 10-day forecast, so I think we're good for just regular snowing and snow plowing and sanding, salting. The other thing was, I talked about grader tire had a bubble formed on the inside of the tire. Able to come up with a tire, a used tire, roughly the same wear as the one that needed replacing. And I made another phone call to the Chesterfield Tire Service, and they immediately came up within 2 hours and took the old tire off.
Goodyear?
Yeah.
Not tire warehouse. I mean, not
Chesterfield
Chesterfield
Tire.
tire. They're really
Chesterfield
nice.
tire. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Well, they just a tire.
so their service was great. I just gave them the office address and phone numbers, my phone numbers,
Great.
and they were gonna send the bill. So it's just gonna be for them to travel, put it on and go back. I did ask them if they could get rid of that tire for us. There'll be a fee for that, but I don't know what we would do with it. No good tire, so
Okay.
that'll be added to the bill.
Nice going.
And
Okay.
so the grader is up and running and ready for work. I also wanted to set with Dot and see if we got the same email from Megan to compare notes there. She wants to set up a schedule to meet. That topic is on the grants and what we're eligible for. That would take place after our town meeting day. She voted that on the email. So tomorrow, we're supposed to be getting some rain, and I'll be in town to monitor if we need to make some runouts for excess water, I don't think we're supposed to get a large amount of volume of rain. It's supposed to turn to a sleet and then to a snow, so I assume the plow guys will probably be doing their thing.
Yes.
I also made inquiries on mowing rentals and still have not heard back yet, so I'll make another call this coming week to see if I can get some prices for. We're on the schedule again for the overall mower rental through Maine, Fairfield, for the overrail mower rental, but I was trying to get another price on another mower just to compare. And so I will bring that information as I get it. And basically, I guess that's it.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, yes, sir.
Who does fill out all the reports that are required? Has it been yourself or you and Archie or the select board and you? How does that work?
Which reports are you talking about?
Well, the TA6 and the T60 and the capital, the annual capital report, et cetera, et cetera. The things that were mentioned in the email from Mark Pickering referencing that we'd soon be hearing from Megan.
They contact us
As they need.
as they get information that we need and to make sure that we know. And then I've just worked with the chair, Dave, helped last year,
Generally things that we as a town have been required to file for road things are sent to the select board. Or sometimes they may be addressed to the road commissioner or road
Right.
supervisor or something. I will say that one thing that has become more complicated is that I think there's a lot more things now that are only communicated from the state by email, which used to be physically mailed to boards.
Yes, my team.
And so there's a lot more opportunity for things to be missed and slip through the cracks than there was when they were physically sending communications to towns.
Exactly.
It's a big problem because I don't think they realize how, whatever, I mean, we're.
Some towns are.
Yeah, most towns are. And that most towns do not have, I mean, it's, people at the state who are sending out the communications, it's their full-time job.
Really?
And they're sending it from their work emails to a distribution list that may not be accurate,
Exactly.
that they've pulled from wherever, or who knows where it's necessarily come from. And it used to be, a couple of years ago, they did that, but then there were also physical copies of things that were coming. But at some point, I think they've stopped sending physical copies of a lot of these things, which is not good.
So they send them as attachments, and so that's why I just put in an order from where.
Well, or they don't even send them as attachments, they just send them in the body of an email as a link to go to a website and
Fill it out.
print something out yourself or fill it out or whatever. I mean, the other thing that we have that is fortunate for us is in, like you said, people at V-Trans like Megan who know that we aren't necessarily going to have gotten the information or have grasped all the information because we don't have full-time administrators and full-time road crews. They'll remind us of stuff we get, and I'm sure over the years, we've gotten a lot of reminder emails from Jeff Nugent at
He's
Wyndham
good at it.
Regional.
He's very good.
And people like that who have said, I noticed you guys haven't completed Form X yet, which you have to complete every year. just a reminder, you know, I mean,
Right.
you know, there are people who
Overseeing.
are helping remind towns of it, but that doesn't cover everything. And I don't know, quite frankly, I mean, this isn't really a discussion for us, but at some point, since my hours on the board are numbered at this point, those of you who remain, it is worth mentioning, if you ever have the opportunity, to people at the state or our legislators, quite frankly, that the state has shifted as though everybody in all of these little towns are completely ready to do everything electronically, when clearly we are not. And so.
Especially if they have the wrong information.
Oh, yeah, right,
If
exactly.
they have the wrong email address, or they have the wrong
Right.
contact information, it's great.
Well,
How do we know.
I forward a lot of stuff that I get, not knowing whether or not you received it, but I just send it anyway, even though you may have received it. And for instance, that Form 60 that has to be filled out in regards to how much we spend on each road on a highway. But I send them all to you, and Dave is correct. They have assumed that we're all waiting for an email and we're all in compliance, and it just doesn't quite work that way, not yet anyway.
I was just thinking that in light of the fact that we have a more structured role for you, and we did a job description of sorts. Given that, you know, we were looking for more things to be done by yourself in terms of you might not be taxed for the full 30 hours that we have, that if there is a way of sharing some of the workload in terms of there being an existing schedule somewhere that, oh, by the state, we gotta do such and such, or what have you, or maybe the LCT has one. Or maybe the state has one, so that we could use that as a reference point, and it would facilitate your involvement in doing that. And not knowing whether I, as a select board member, should be looking toward you to be a contributor toward, oh, this needs to be done, or whether you're gonna be looking to the select board to let you know that. So I guess I'm feeling my way through what I should be doing, and as at the same time wondering what you're thinking about that.
Yeah.
Really, that's, I guess, where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I should talk to Archie about his involvement as a commissioner to help move some of these, he's been around a long time too.
Well, you just need basically someone to really monitor the grants that we have. And it's not gonna get easier, it's gonna get even more complicated because of the ARPA money. And the ARPA money has codes now that we have to use for spending. It's getting to a point where it's pretty confusing, and it almost seems like one person should be assigned as a spearhead and get all the emails, because we only have an email for the town. We have an email to the select board, which, you know, is a main, but each one of you have emails. And I don't know if Mark gets any information from V-Trans.
Yeah.
Okay,
I do.
so, you know, that's another problem, they don't know who to send it to. That's,
Well, that's where we have a responsibility and accountability to decide amongst ourselves how we're gonna structure it. And who do we point from wherever in the state to the right people, the right office,
I
et
think
cetera.
a simple, you know, Excel sheet with all the dates of when the forms, there's only 4 or 5 forms that have to be done. You know, the highway mileage and the Form 60 and so forth. And you know, almost a checklist every year that
Right,
the select board looks at and says, okay, did we do this form, did we do that?
okay,
Okay.
great, yeah, I agree with that completely.
I mean, I admit, I don't have a laptop or a computer at home, everything. I just got the new updated phone, and I'm getting service in a lot more places, more emails than I ever used to. And, you know, when I first started this job, paperwork was very minimal, it was
Yeah, I'll bet.
laborious, but I know as time is coming, everything is becoming more complicated, more paperwork.
So Archie maybe would be a person to.
I do
so-
get information through Archie when he gets emails, he'll call, say, did you see this? And I'm like, no, I
Okay.
didn't see that, or I did see that. And now Dot's been very helpful, doing the same.
Yeah, my thoughts on that immense, as David has been, just
Yeah.
immensely.
And
I
so
can see.
I know I'm far from your guys' level, but
Well,
I'm learning and I lack in a lot of.
And not to add any more, but, and to get, you know, things along, but there's one other thing that I found myself laying in bed at night thinking about was, are you, and are we as a board expecting you to have access to a computer here in the office as a part of your role to check on things that are going on, what needs to be done, with your own password to that directory or whatever? That was just a thought that I thought, what would make things easier for everybody,
yeah.
in a way, possibly? And I'm just throwing that idea on the table, not looking for me or anyone else to provide a yes or no answer or a descriptive one, but to think about, maybe reflect on later.
That's a very good point.
So before we move off of this, can I just mention one more thing as you're talking about things, and one of them being grants?
You
I
got
just wanna make
it.
very clear,
Mhm.
the salt sand shed project,
Mhm.
somebody has to take that over. I'm not going to continue to do that. So
Is there a file on that
we
somewhere?
need to, Judy has kept a file. There is a file in the filing system that Judy has kept about applications for funding, things like that.
Who has the drawings of the plant and the specs?
They're in the-
You're in
They're in
here.
there, okay.
Well, yeah, although we still, I mean, technically, we still haven't even gotten the absolutely final ones from Ron, but anyway, that's something that needs to be, I mean, I can make the introduction to our project manager and to the state, Chris Hunt, the V-Trans project manager. But they probably need to have a point person to know who is gonna be the contact person.
All right, good point, yeah.
And not to delve too much into it, the other thing I'll say is, you know, it's February and the objective had been to put out a bid potentially for it in January, which obviously hasn't happened. It's still,
They're
to
gonna
the
work
best of
on-
my knowledge, I don't think it's yet been approved by V-Trans. Or it's unclear exactly where
Who's
it's
the, who
at.
is the manager for this at Wyndham for us?
It's now Margot Gia.
Yeah, she's the new one.
That's what I would.
Right.
I will offer to assist with any of the computer work that you've done on the town report. If you have files or whatever that you want to share, I'm willing to assist in that. And I'm willing to assist in this grants thing if
Well, the grants, I think Stanley would be a great guy for that, because we had a log with grants, we had a whole thing set up. And if we could just do one person who really knows what it and passes all the information to everyone else, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when Louise still worked here.
Yep,
Louise sort of was our grants administrator and
Exactly.
kept a log of all this stuff. And then when Louise left, nobody in the treasurer group was comfortable taking it on, and it just sort of fell by the wayside. Judy has picked up some aspects of it, but it's really, I think hers is really just trying to keep a physical file folder of things related to the grants.
And it
But
hasn't
there's not really
moved
anything
yet.
electronic.
We haven't really started moving beyond the paper stage of anything yet, so.
Right.
And also Samora helped a couple of years with.
Right.
with the
Yeah,
application
exactly right. I mean,
and stuff.
Samara was part of all of that as well.
Yeah, all right, we'll have to sit down and I have to find out what just came in the mail, what needs to get done, and then, but yeah, that's fabulous. All right, I'm gonna move on to communications. I already told you the regular mail that I've gotten, and then we have here a Vermont Old Cemetery Association, which I was a member of. I think my membership expired, but there's a work thing on that. Putney Mountain, we already talked about because that came in the email. We're gonna send a letter of support. We each got a letter from the Legislative Council for the BCA members about the redistricting. They were all delivered here, yeah, so they sent them to the BCA and to the town clerk. So that just came today, we'll review that. And we also got here, a letter from Agency of Transportation, that this is the update for check the attached current listing of highways and bridges and making appropriate additions. So this is one of the forms that you were probably referring to, that they haven't gotten yet, but it just came in the mail, so I'll take a look at it.
Is that the Form 60?
I don't know what it's
No,
called.
that's not
No, this is,
something else.
this is,
Doesn't look like it.
failure to update the information online or file this application will result in such a posting being null and void. I don't know, I have to. It's deal with the highway weight limits, and it's required by February 10th.
Oh, that, okay, that's for the posting of the roads,
That's
which I was the contact person, and basically, when you folks decided when the season started and everything else, the only way we could enforce those postings is by me going on to the website and saying the town has said this, 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 and this.
Okay,
And
so
then-
that's what this is.
Yep, that's what that is.
All right, so that was our mail, and any of the emails we already distributed with that. So with that, I'm gonna move on to pay orders.
So
Where does it say? Oh,
that's, yeah, this was my book when I was acting road commissioner and everything else. And I had all the grants and everything else, but this is what would be ideal.
Yes.
So maybe we can get together and
Sure.
and then formulate a thing where a key, a point person, and then can explain it to the rest of the board. And depending on what happens with the position and, after the elections and so forth, there may be some changes there too that we can work out. So,
all right, I'd like to move on, and I have in front of me the payroll warrant. I'd like to make a motion to approve payroll warrant 22-30 dated February 2nd, 2022 in the amount of $2,082.68. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving payroll warrant 22-30 for $2,082.68 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Pass this around. I would like to make a motion to approve accounts payable warrant 22-31 dated February 2nd, 2022 in the amount of $2,683.60. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving accounts payable warrant 22-31 in the amount of $2,683.60 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Here's this to sign. Setting the agenda for the next meeting on February 16th. One would be open bids. 2 is the contract. 3 might be any of the road info that we brought up tonight that we can discuss. 4 will be the town info meeting. And if there's anything else, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Okay? All right.
I would like to compliment you on handling some of the topics in the select board report. The explanation of the increased cost, increased labor cost, et cetera, that, might be a source of discussion. You kind of did a good job of
Okay.
overlaying that so that it's obvious, as to why some of those things happen.
Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, if not, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning this evening signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. The time is 8:44.